Good evening, and a very warm or cold, depending where you are in the country. Very warm welcome to this evening's roundup of today's budget. What a shambles! I think we might all describe that as. Couple of housekeeping bits just before we crack on. So firstly, this session is being recorded and a transcript's being taken by a computer, by AI. If you're not comfortable with that, afraid now's the time to leave. So I'm going to share my screen and Colette and I will then go through kind of the main points that we picked up from on this evening. If you've got questions, please pop them either in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll do our best as we go to answer those. We've got our contact details at the end as well. So if you're not, if you don't feel we've answered your question or you want more info, please just reach out. Right. So, yeah, let me try and share my screen, see if we can get that to work. One moment. Oh, there we go. Look. So
as if by magic.
Can you confirm that if by magic it is working?
Absolutely, Gareth. I can concur, Houston. We have a screen.
Perfect. Thanks, Colette. Obviously, this is being hosted by the Hair and Barber Council this evening, but just looking at those who've attended, we've got people from across the sector, which is really fantastic. And you know, this webinar this evening very much forms part of our kind of view of trying to bring as many people together, as much information shared, because that we feel is very much the best way to get ourselves through the current situation. So as I mentioned, tonight we're looking what the budget means for your business, and so that means we're not going to be looking at the personal taxation bit. So we're not going to cover off the mansion tax. We're not going to look at those elements unless they directly impact, or we think they will directly impact on your business. So, you know me, Gareth Penn, Registrar of the Hairdressing Council, and with my other hat on, I also am the Managing Director of Good Salon Guide. And with me, Colette, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. For those that don't know me, I'm Colette Osborne. I'm the Vice Chair for the Hairdressing Council. I'm also part of the BHG. I'm also founder and owner of Salons United, and more importantly, I'm also a practicing salon owner and hairdresser.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Thank you, Colette. Okay, so the world we live in, this is not legal or financial advice.
Yeah.
Speak to a professional before making changes. And actually, that last bit there, speak to a professional before making changes, I can't overemphasize how important that is. Please don't, after this budget, just like we said with the last one, please don't jump in and make changes until all of the detail from the budget has come out. What we know, and you'll see a few times through the slides, is that we've got the announcement from the Chancellor, but that more detail is required, because it's only when we get the kind of budget act before Parliament do we really know every last T and I within the detail, and the devil is absolutely in the detail.
Yeah, and it is, Gareth, and we've just been sent a huge amount of documents for me to read through the evening of all the legislation behind this. And I think, just to emphasise what you just said, Gareth, I think it's really important for those of you out there. The first thing is with the budget is firstly, you know, to obviously, you know, kind of pause, not listening to, you know, shall we say, you know, any areas. It has to be an expert view on this. From an employment and a tax perspective, if anybody's out there that do need urgent help or need some urgent advice, then please direct message me or Gareth, and we will obviously try and help and point you or signpost you to somebody that can give you some advice.
That's right, and those people that we will signpost you to, we do believe in the advice they give. They're not snake oil charmers, which I think is
No.
part of the problem.
Yeah.
As I said, please ask questions in the chat or the Q&A, whichever you're more comfortable with, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go. We quite like that interaction, if you like, or wait to the end and we can do them then. So what we're going to do is we're going to break the budget down into how it impacts the different groups that work within our sector. And some of this, there is crossover, of course, between each of the different groups. But where we think a measure is particularly impacting, say, the self-employed or say apprentices, that is where we bring up that measure. And then finally, I think this is quite important bit, is that we look very briefly right at the end about how these measures may impact client behavior. And I'll say, I'll put it right up front, this is just it's a bit of a finger in the air as to how we think clients will act, because economists get it wrong all the time about how consumers are going to act following a budget or another such event. We've given it our best go. Okay, so first off, the self-employed, and we with self-employed, we have not separated out here people who work in self-employed from one location, or self-employed working from multiple locations, because actually most of these measures cross all of the self-employed workers. And the first one here is, I think, probably the most important. Now, one of and arguably the most important announcement within the budget that's going to impact our sector is further announcement about enforcement of non-payment of tax or tax avoidance. And you've got to take this in the context of what was announced in the previous budget, the horror show that was October 24. Because in October 24, the Chancellor stood up and said there are multiple billions of pounds going to Treasury and HMRC to start enforcement action against not just our sector. This is absolutely not sector specific. It is economy wide. But if Colette reads you some of the guidance that we've just received from Treasury, you'll hopefully see why we are concerned around the enforcement piece.
Thank you, Gareth. So I'm going to read you exactly what the Chancellor said. Okay, and this is really important for us to understand this. And incredibly important is what Gareth said earlier about making sure you get the correct advice here and don't follow what's put on social media or anything else. So the introduction of digital ID will break the link between illegal migration and illegal working. And HMRC and the Fair Work Agency will crack down on the illicit businesses that blight our high streets and undercut legitimate firms, enforcing the minimum wage, investigating dodgy businesses, and increasing scrutiny of the gig economy, as well as tracking down fraudulent businesses owners who have vanished without paying their taxes. And I'd like to thank my basically other heads in Treasury and everything else, Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes, Lee, etc. And I'll take further steps to prevent and track down unpaid tax, which will, together with these reforms, will raise nearly 10 billion a year by 2030, including new powers for HMRC to pursue the promoters of tax avoidance schemes. I am building our successful use of targeted checks on welfare claims to root out fraud and error to prevent public money being spent that people are not entitled to. Now, I've read that statement out verbatim, Gareth, but I just want to explain a little bit, if it's okay with you, who they're talking about. You just mentioned, Gareth, that in October 2024, the Chancellor gave around 2 billion to actually employ additional 5,000 compliance workers, and that work has been underway for some time. The Fair Pay Agency is an organisation that's been put together by government that brings together multi-departments from across different areas of government. And what they are there to do is to do exactly what the Chancellor said. The tone of that for me, Gareth, I don't know how you feel about that, but that was incredibly strong to be said in a budget. And I believe that was a warning shot, which is concerning. The reason I think that's concerning is because quite clearly they are looking at this in some detail. As an accountant myself and somebody who knows about these areas, I think it's really important that people make sure seek the correct advice. But with regards to the Fair Pay Agency, that comes into force beginning of April, but it's already really in play now. HMRC, we've already had people actually reporting they're getting national minimum wage checks. Okay, so that is verbatim from the Treasury, from the Chancellor herself, without me putting any other detail in there.
Thank you, Colette. I think the point here is this is not either from us or from government here a self-employed versus employed issue, because a large part of what the Chancellor talked about here was things like not paying national minimum wage in the correct way, or businesses closing, limited companies closing to avoid PAYE liability. So this enforcement is very much economy wide, but because of bad advice that people may have taken over many years in our sector, we do feel that we're particularly open to this enforcement. If you're in doubt as to whether the arrangements that you have are either working from one or multiple locations, if you're in doubt as to whether they stand up, we would very strongly advise you take your contracts to a lawyer and to an accountant. Yeah, go on, Colette.
I was just going to say, Gareth, you just made a critical point there, because obviously we're talking today about the fiscal budget, but we do have the Employment Rights Bill right behind this coming in. I think it's really important to say, Gareth, with regards to that, because if I can just say it like this, there's a lot of people out there advising people to switch businesses to different models. Currently, until the Employment Rights Bill is actually in play in its full intent, entirety, and what I mean by that is currently under employment law, there's 3 categorizations for your working status. So you've got employed, which is obvious. You've got worker status, which carries a lot of rights like employees do, apart from various tribunal rights, unfair dismissal and things like that. Then you've got self-employed. So this is definitely, just so I want to reiterate, this was the message I've just said, this is not about employers and self-employed or versus anything else. But basically, with regards to the Employment Rights Bill, the worker status and the employed status will be combined to one. In tax law, there's 2. So this is what they're doing. There's no synergy between employment law and tax law, and they're going to make them meet exactly where they should be. So what that means is, and what Gareth was just mentioning, it's really important that people do, and I would direct you directly to HMRC site, and I would direct you to their employment status test or the CEST tool. We can provide a link to that, Gareth, I'm sure, and actually go through that for every single person that you have in your business. If you're an employer, obviously you don't need to do that, but if you're not sure about somebody's employment status, now is the time to check it. Equally, Gareth just mentioned something. I call generic contracts for the industry the box colour contracts, because that's what they are, Gareth, in real terms. They offer limited protections, and we've seen that in recent tribunals. But without going into too much detail there, I do think if anybody's concerned about this and concerned about what we've read out, the reason we've read it out is because, some of you actually are going to get potentially a call. Some of you won't. But at the same time, as they say, Gareth, forewarned is forearmed, and we can help you to actually make sure that you have the right information and not follow what people are telling you in the pub. Sorry, Gareth, I'd love to go for a pint right now.
I'm amazed that wasn't taxed. You're right. I would signpost people to the Hair Council website. We did a webinar a couple of months ago exactly on this issue, looking in some detail, signposting some of the resources from Treasury. Okay, so we'll move on from that. So one of the other measures that we may impact the self-employed is if you pay yourself with dividends, the tax is to increase by 2%. If you're a sole trader who works self-employed, which is the majority, then this isn't going to impact you. Yeah, go on, Colette.
I was just going to say, Gareth, we've got the increase to 2%, but if your director's loan account, so this is whether you're a limited company and you're drawing dividends and your director's loan account is in, shall we say, deficit in the red, then they've actually increased that slightly as well, Gareth, just up to 35% from 33%.
Yeah. So thank you. So they're just, I think it was called a smorgasbord. They're just chipping away at everything we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Colette mentioned digital ID. Not quite sure the difference between a digital ID, which is mandatory to work, and a national insurance number.
Or an NHS
if they still
number.
give people national insurance cards, that's definitely showing my name, my age. Sorry,
one. Yeah,
but I've still got mine when I was whenever that was, first job, and we are unsure as to how digital ID will be mandatory for those who are self-employed. I can completely see how this would be something an employer needs to check. So, for example, will a digital ID be mandatory for your engager to check? So, for example, if you rent a chair, would it be mandatory for your salon owner, the landlord, for you to check your digital ID? We don't know. It's not to worry about at the moment. We're just highlighting that it is coming.
It's just important to say on that one, Gareth, as well, because you've mentioned that it's 2029. I've read out a statement from the Chancellor, but the Fair Pay Agency, and that is not 2029. No. Also, Gareth just made a point about the digital ID. This is something that's obviously coming in because they're looking at that in the future. But currently, if you actually engage or employ anybody, you do actually, especially on an employment point of view, you have to prove their worker status, as in, have they got a work permit to actually work in the UK? And what their employment status is, and that's for you to determine, okay, and document. That is really important, because if you did actually get somebody ask you questions on somebody's status in your business, you have to determine what that status is, documented it, and put in a review process. Really important to show that you've made sensible, reasonable decisions based on the information at hand.
I think that's right. It's very much like a health and safety policy. You have to document that you have a health and safety policy, either in salon or wherever you work from, and that is whether you're self-employed or you're an employer. And I know Sheila helps her members with those sorts of things. And
Sheila's amazing.
This is just the same. Okay, so we're going to move on to employers, and I've got to say, I think employers have had. They've been most vocal in recent times around how the government see all employers, not just in our sector, but they see all employers as a bit like a bank. And to be quite honest, that hasn't changed. The minimum wage increases from April 26. I'm sure many of you have seen this. We put some stuff out last night, and the comments were unanimous. And they were absolutely unanimous. And again, it makes me smile, because governments of all colour, when they increase the national minimum wage, they say, and I used the quote from Labour last night, Labour is paying workers more. And I think that's the fundamental problem we have here, is that it's employers not that Labour is paying employers more, is that employees more. Employers, the small businesses, are paying people more. Yeah. We have to follow the law. So for those that hadn't seen, this is from April over 21 up to 1271, between 18 and 20 up to 1085, and apprentices a 6% increase up to £8 an hour. And we alongside other organisations in the hair industry, lobbied the Low Pay Commission really very hard indeed
Mm.
not to increase these rates further. And it is government policy to bring up the 18 to 20 age band up to the 21 and over age band. They want to see that. I wouldn't be surprised to see further increases in that age range in this parliament. You can see from that, they have received the largest increase of all of the groups. We are working very hard with the Department for Business and Trade and Department for Education about the apprentice issue, because fundamentally, the training of apprentices has always been the lifeblood of our sector. And, you stop that, then we do all obviously very much worry about, what the future holds.
I just wanted to add a point there, Gareth, as well, because I've seen some webinars today where people were talking about the national minimum wage and national living wage. So I just wanted to say something so that people are clear on this. The national minimum wage is mandatory within law. The national living wage is voluntary. So the national living wage has increased as well. But what I'm saying is the two, just so people don't get mistaken by that. Because some people have been saying, well, the national living wage is £13.45. Have I got to pay that? That's a voluntary if you wish to do that. But the national minimum wage is mandatory within law.
The 1271, yeah.
1271. On up to 21 plus, obviously. But as Gareth just said, I think it's really important, Gareth, I don't think you give it justice how much work we've done on this, on the age bands. And it's not because we don't want everybody to be paid more, but we talk about employers paying people. Our clients are actually paying these wages. So I think it's really important to say the amount of work we've gone in to do that, and that's to actually safeguard the 18 to 20-year-olds from losing their jobs. And I think it's really important to say we've got away with it in this budget. I doubt we're going to get away with it in the next one.
We'll keep trying.
We will keep trying. We're not going to stop, are we, Gareth? That's for sure.
Okay, so other measures tonight or today for employers. So if you make a profit, and there is some detail here about how much profit you make, but we're not going to dive into that here. But if you make a profit, corporation tax rates are frozen. I think it's probably indicative the fact government know that not all that many businesses are making a profit, that they can freeze it. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a whole other discussion.
So business rates. I'm sure all of you who have business premises really picked up on this. And I would highlight, just to kind of spin back to the enforcement piece around self-employed. If you are a self-employed stylist and you have, let's say, a converted garage, or you have a building that you have created, your garden, that is used for business, as in it is used for your business, you would, in my understanding, qualify to have to pay business rates. Colette's going to disagree with me there, or correct me.
No, I'm not going to correct you or disagree with you, Gareth. I'm going to say if you actually do trade in that area, you have to actually seek various licensing and planning permissions from your local authority. And that can actually be varied across depending where you are. I think there's something to say on here, Gareth, because I do actually now have the rates if you want me to share them. So basically the lower or the small retail rate was 49 point something. So if you had a £50,000 rateable value, for argument's sake, then you would have been paying, just under £25,000. But what they've done is they've reduced that, but there's a bit of a sleight of hand here, Gareth, that nobody's noticed. So what they've done is they've reduced that now to the taper, as they call it, being 32 something. So they're giving us 5 pence back. Thank you very much, Rachel. That's going to really, it does help, but every penny counts, my granddad used to say. But there's no confirmation or notification or any commentary around this, Gareth, about the current 40% discount being carried forward.
And I think that's what's interesting here is if, you listen to what government said after the last budget, they would say, well, we've permanently decreased business rates. Well, yes, from a pre-pandemic rate, but actually we're only really interested in the post-pandemic rate because that's the rate that we've been running our businesses to. We have already confirmed that this business rate review, relief, however you want to describe it, we are included, because when they quote retail, hospitality and leisure, it isn't always us. So we're really pleased that we're included. We'll keep you up to date with the detail.
We've already got the links, Gareth, on that as well, where you can actually check your rateable value with the valuation office.
Absolutely, because they've said it's going to be paid for by higher rates on properties worth more than £500,000. We don't really at this point understand what that means, because the Chancellor quoted large distribution centres, and so there's a bit of a disconnect here. We'll keep you up to date with what it all means. Yes, go on, Colette.
I was just going to say I do know that information now, Gareth. I'm a bit weird because I read documents.
This is why Colette's great. She just is on the detail. Go on.
Yeah, well, basically, so what it looks like is properties under a rateable value of 500,000 are allowed the tapered discount down to 30-something%, 32, I think it is, don't quote me. But the ones with the value over that stay at the 49.
Okay.
And if you've got 2 salons, first property relief is extended for 3 years, at which point you can't take any relief on the second property.
Okay, that's helpful. I would also say at this point, there are lots of these business rates advisors out there who will be filling your inbox with sales patter about save a lot of money by allowing me to re-rate your building. Please think before you jump in with any of them, because they often take many multiples of the saving that they might give you.
And they actually also, Gareth, look for from front fees. So, they get people to part with money based on that. And I would say anything like that, I would put it to one side and take advice, or just basically file it in the cabinet.
Research it yourself. It's not that hard now. No. Other thing that was announced, which impacts those that are tenants, is an increase of landlord's tax by 2%. There's a question mark as to whether that will be passed on in higher rents. I would be amazed if it weren't, and that may also impact those. And you need to be mindful of those if you're working from a home environment and you're renting. Is your landlord passing that on, and you then need to reconsider your prices.
And also, Gareth, if you are actually renting out chairs or subletting, you are the landlord. So there might be some finer detail in there later.
Oh, goodness. Yes, I hadn't considered that. That is, yeah.
I think that's going to be advice. One that might be in there. Take advice.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can get it going again. Come on, computer. Hang on, we're having, I think obviously the Treasury can probably hear what we're saying and have...
Do you know what I think, Gareth? I think, I'm not being funny thing, but I think IT's been really quite, shall we say, temperamental over the last couple of days. Personally, I think the Chancellor blew up the internet last night. I think what happened was there was that much information leaked. It was kind of quite underwhelming today. Like you said, Gareth, the budget was a buffet of tinkering all around the edges.
Yeah.
And the tax kind of market, while Gareth sorting his technical bits out, was saying, well, this is because they don't want to actually spook the market so that we are increased borrowing.
I think that's right, Colette. I think this is a budget that's not about small business or consumers. It's about the debt. Yes. So one of the things we just wanted to highlight here was the effective increase in income tax levels. Now, the reason it's an increase is because the rates or the taxable income bands they should be increasing with inflation, but they're not. And so effectively, as inflation means prices are higher, that means hopefully wages are higher and your income is higher, therefore you will be paying more tax. So this is going to be really widely covered in the media because it's the big tax increase effectively from the budget. So
yeah, it raises about 8 billion a year. But Gareth, just sorry to just cut over there. Sorry about that.
Mm.
One of the things here, I don't know if this is a manifesto pledge break.
I think this is. I'd agree with you, Colette. I think this is pretty close to a manifesto
It's very
pledge break,
close.
but I would say that they'll, as politicians are prone to, they'll wheedle their way out of
I know
it on a
that.
technicality because, yeah. Anyway, enough
Yes.
about.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
not go there.
I'm really
But this
struggling
does
with.
this does mean that obviously as people increase prices, Gareth, it kind of, means that everybody's paying more slightly, doesn't it, really, in real terms?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So on to employees. So we've already mentioned the changes to the national minimum wage. Of course, if you are an employee of any age being paid the national minimum wage, you're going to be paid more now from April. So make sure you're engaged with your employer in advance, because I'm sure nobody wants to have a mistake made with that. There is a change to the salary sacrifice pension scheme. So again, this is a bit of a technicality for those that effectively pay in a lot of money to their pension tax-free, and it's now going to be capped at £2,000. And so again, probably not going to impact many employees, but if you're a director, you are an employee,
Yeah.
and this is the group there really that is going to target. Likewise, if you are self-employed but you have a limited company and you do it through that for very good reason, again, this might impact you.
Also, as well, Gareth, I think it's important for anybody that's actually operating an auto enrolment pension scheme, because we know how volatile they can be, shall we say. I think it's really important they check that they're not on a salary sacrifice scheme here. And obviously, I'm going to get some more detail on this in regards to if this, because obviously, as we know, Gareth, sometimes is this a cap on the individual, or how is it apportioned across employment? So I'll be checking that detail as well.
Yeah, great, thank you. I mean, as we said, the devil here is in the detail,
Always
isn't
in the
it? And so
detail.
always in the detail. So, and then finally for employees, and this is also for employers, is not to forget the Employment Rights Act, which comes in 2026. We have covered this before when the measures first came out. We will cover it again in detail because there is a real push-pull with the Employment Rights Act. So there are some definite costs and risks for employers.
And some of it's already actually come in.
Yeah,
So, but nothing that I think would be, let's say, concerning you all this evening. But I think, again, I think it's really important to make sure that when we call a webinar on this with the council or anybody else, really important that you attend that, because there's some fundamental changes coming, especially with regards to what I said earlier about the synergy between taxation and employment being aligned. That's going to, shall we say, open a few Pandora's boxes, I think.
but it also, I think it all the other side of the Employment Rights Act is that it's, I think, going to be a pull. So it's going to be a reason why people may wish to return
Absolutely. Yes,
to being employed, because sick pay is enhanced, and those sorts of things. And so it is something, I think, not to be
it's a
completely
benefit,
negative about.
Gareth. And I think people don't often count the benefits, do they? They just look at, one area. They don't actually count, the full benefits of employment with regards to holiday pay, sick pay, and everything else.
Exactly. So apprentices, when the minimum wage was announced last night, and I'm pretty sure it should have waited till today for the budget, but anyway, there we are. A lot of the commentary was around, well, that's effectively another nail in the coffin of people taking on apprentices. And I think the reform of the way in which apprentices are funded and the way in which apprentices need to work through their training, we still have, there's still a lot of stuff, I think, to come out on this, and there's a lot of lobbying that is well worth us and other organisations doing to make apprentices more affordable for all employers in a sector like ours. And I think and I've said it before, and I'm sure I'll say it again, is that I think that there's a fundamental problem in that government see an apprenticeship as being something that BAE or Rolls-Royce do, where minimum wage is just not even
on their radar, Gareth. It's not even in the petty cash tin. I've worked in those corporations.
No. And so,
yeah.
So they'll say, yeah, great, okay, increase the minimum wage because it doesn't bother them.
Whereas, but Gareth, since 2020, this is 111% increase when you consider the it basically puts, I think it's about £18,000 a year, something like that. And then obviously
paid for by the employer.
Plus, you've got employers' NI on that because the allowance was reduced. Don't forget.
So one of the announcements in the budget was about funding changes to the way in which employers get some support. There's a little bit more detail come out on this, which Colette's going to give us now, which has come out since I wrote the slide post-budget.
2 hours ago. Yeah. No, you didn't like the slides 2 hours ago, but it's moving that fast, guys. This is our world, isn't it, Gareth? Right, so the detail on this is obviously, this is a bit of a, for me, this is just hot air, because the funding for obviously under 21s is fully funded anyway for small employers who aren't applicable to the levy. So what this means is they've just basically said, usually if somebody's, I think it was 21, you had to put a percentage in, around £550 towards the apprenticeship. All they've done is increase that to 25. That's it. There's nothing else in there. There's no additional funding coming. That is the detail.
And you reduce the hours to 16, then you're going to start to impact standards. It is not in a good place, apprenticeships. We're not alone though, and that's helpful, as in our sector is not alone. This is impacting hospitality and those sectors as well, but we are definitely impacted more. As I say, mixed bag, but probably fewer opportunities available for apprentices in the short term as a result. I'm sure most of you are aware of the report that we did with CBI Economics, amazingly back in February of this year. It feels like an absolute lifetime ago.
Yeah, it does.
But that had some stats which looks like they're being borne out, that there will be no or very, very few apprentice starts in hairdressing by 2030. We've seen a 28% decrease in the number of PAYE employees in hairdressing in the first quarter of this year. It looks like that kind of worst case for the employed sector is coming true.
I think there's something else there as well, Gareth, because interestingly, I watched a webinar before I came on here, and I won't mention anything else, but the comment on the webinar was that despite what's being said out there, we aren't losing apprentices. Now, that is actually fake news. CBI Economics are one of the most respected, economists, shall I say, within kind of government. And, this has been checked again. I don't think we have to even look at the stats, Gareth, to know how many people are reducing apprentices or have done since the last budget. I think it's really important.
The reality is the figures here will be the proof. And
of course, yeah.
Nothing would make me happier than to see an increase in the number of apprentices. And so, we there's a couple of bits in a minute. We'll talk about where we need your help, and that will help us with.
Can I just mention something else on the apprentices, Gareth? Sorry, I know I'm a pain in the backside. On the apprentices side, I've had quite a few CVs through and letters through from people who've actually just desperately. We've got amazing people who want to come into our industry, and they're looking for work placements to get experience on their CVs as part of their college. So they're just looking to volunteer into a salon for 30 hours, 40 hours. So it's a way for you to actually still aid and actually bring these people into the industry and give them that opportunity. Plus, it helps your business. Plus, you never know, you might find a little star there.
Absolutely right. That's exactly right. Okay. So we'll just quickly look at the impact we feel that this will be on clients. Again, as I said, this is a bit of a finger in the air. So wage rises from increased minimum wage leads to higher prices. So that could be seen in some ways as a disincentive for clients to come in. Again, do look at including the wage increases you're going to have to pay in your pricing calculator, because like last year, where there was an extremely good and justifiable reason, because I'm not going to use the word excuse, because it's not an excuse, is something you feel you're sorry about. But the reality is, if the government increase our costs, we need to increase our prices. It's really super important. Otherwise, those increases are coming out of your pocket. And I'm sure that there will be other increases that you see in things like colour and so forth. The rent we've talked about. So please do really think about your price point. Please don't base your prices on what your competitors around the corner are charging. Base your prices on your costs and your service.
And you bang on the money there, Gareth, no pun intended. But I think, now is the best time. The best time. We're just before Christmas. People are booking appointments in. Now is the best time, if you've got to increase your prices, to increase them now, because, who better to blame than Rachel Reeves? We don't need to. I'm sure if I go into Tesco's or Sainsbury's tomorrow and the price of Lurpak's gone up, or Yorkshire tea, because I like Yorkshire tea, Sainsbury's aren't going to make an announcement to me. They're just going to put it up. And that's...
Well, they put it up through the year.
Yeah, they do, but I put mine up through the year, Gareth. I don't wait for a budget. I monitor my pricing throughout the year and efficiencies, and we look at what should be increased and what shouldn't. And that's something we definitely do with all the guys that I help. But I think it's really important right now. What I would say is, please do not wait until April the 1st next year to look at your prices. Look at them now. You've got time. You've got plenty of time to, get your ducks lined up, if that makes sense, I believe, Gareth. I really do. Because don't forget, these rises don't come until April. However, as Gareth said, we may see some of this trip, come through, because there have been some additional taxes put onto imports. So, we might actually see that actually come through in price increases on our goods and products that we use.
Okay, so the but with the Rager was that the inflation forecast is to be 0.4% lower next year, which sounds a bit technical, really. But if there are lower inflation, there's the opportunity for lower interest rates, which means that there's more spending power, so it's less attractive to save. So that is potentially, if inflation does come down, and it came down a bit more than that, then that would potentially have more people feeling like they've got more money in their pockets.
And the other thing is, Gareth, after today, we can't see this because we don't ever. I'm delighted we've got clients on here, because they're very, they're not talked about enough, really, are they? Not when we have, budgets and everything else. But clients are going to be feeling great tomorrow morning, because they think they've got a pay rise. They've just saved £150 on their energy bill. If you use a train, it's been frozen. So the Chancellor's been tinkering around the edges and giving a lot of little things away, like little wins. Pensioners' money's gone up. So now is the time to start getting out there and say, right, and I do think something's really important in this sector is not to look in people's purses. Do not be afraid to charge what you should be charging, because if you don't do that, you're doing yourself a disservice, and it will only catch up with you. But people are going to be feeling positive tomorrow. Whilst it's difficult for employers and everything else, there are people out there who have had an increase in their income, and that income is disposable, and it can be spent in your chair, or your, on your beauty bed or whatever.
So it's funny you said that, because my but here.
Oh, there you go.
is that unfortunately, real household disposable income hasn't really moved. No. And this is a bit of a boring graph here, isn't it? But the reason I think it's worth showing is that, and I stand by our pricing points there, but we'd have to be able to justify why, and it has to be for a good reason, not profit. But absolutely, we should be definitely looking at all of our.
And I think the other thing is as well there, Gareth, it's people will be more. The thing is now, I think our industry is becoming more of a conscious purchase since COVID. So it's more
nice
of
way
a
of putting it.
considered purchase, isn't it? You know, like, do I want this or do I need this? You know, so I think bringing that want back into your business, you know, is a massive driver. So, you know, putting out the positive elements of this is why you want to come here, this is why you want me to do your hair, this is why you want me to do your beauty, and this is why you want me to do your barbering. Because whilst Gareth said that obviously disposable income is pretty much stagnant, people will find ways or what they want to spend money on. It's just how they prioritise their spending, no different to us. Somebody will say, well, actually, I can't afford this, but I will go and spend this on over there. So it's just about perception. So I think if we change the perception, we change the behaviours.
Absolutely. Thank you, Colette. So we've got a couple of next steps which we would love to finish with, but before we do that, has anybody got any questions that they want to they'd like to ask, that they you know, from what we've said or what we haven't said, that you feel there's any bits that need a little bit more detail?
Any concerns you have or anything else, just
Anything like
please
that?
pop your
It
hands up.
could well be that we've done such an incredible job that actually, you know, I've got to say, I think the budget was very underwhelming.
Yeah,
You know,
it was.
we had all been lobbying for changes in tax policy. You know, we very much wanted the VAT rate to be split so that the hands on the human element was reduced to 10%, but that the main rate then remained at 20%. You know, there were also calls for, you know, a different approach, and you know, the reality is, and that's not just in our sector. You know, CBI, sorry, the Federation of Small Business and the CBI were all calling for changes to VAT. You know, we were absolutely on the right side of the argument there, but government, I think they did consider it. We had meetings where it was definitely, you know, it was on the agenda, but they, you know, I think they've absolutely dodged it. And as a result, you know, it's a fantastic opportunity missed, because it would make a huge difference to our sector.
Yeah.
So whilst people think whether they want to ask you questions, so what's next? I think first off is we're going to send you all a survey tomorrow at lunchtime at midday. We're going to get on and finish the questions tonight. And this builds upon the survey that we sent out after last year's budget. And it is, I can't overstate the importance of getting as many responses as we possibly can. I mean, I'm talking not hundreds, but thousands, because with that data, we can then go to government and say, this is the impact of what you have and have not done within the budget. And we can then build upon the asks that we as a sector have based from that data, based from fact, rather than just a we think that this is the case, or we think there's been a change. And so, you know, I think that is really, I can't reiterate enough how important that survey is that we're going to send out. Amanda has popped a question in the chat, which is what's the thoughts on utility prices and the impact to salon cost profit? So I think the challenge there, Amanda, is that the changes they've made to the energy prices today don't impact business purchasing.
Yeah. It's residential capping only.
And so that is only for residential. So again, we mentioned about those that might be self-employed from a domestic house, from a garage or a front room, or from a building in the garden. Strictly speaking, you know, you're supposed to have a commercial energy contract for that. Most don't, and you know, to be honest, I think there's pretty low risk there. However, one of the things that we've been calling on, will continue to call on, is for small businesses to be treated more like a consumer in their energy purchasing, rather than as a business the size of, I used Rolls-Royce earlier, why not, who've got a great big purchasing department and lawyers to look at the contract. whereas your consumer is able to come into an energy contract, and then we all see on our home energy bills, you could leave this contract early for a bill of £100, and sometimes it's worth doing that, isn't it? Because you can move to another provider. We can't do that as businesses. So unfortunately, Amanda, that isn't going to help us.
No.
Other than Colette's point of it puts money in your client's pocket.
Yeah, but there's something else there, considering I used to work in energy. Something else there as well. I think the point you made on the residential side, Gareth, they have data that actually looks over that and it looks for that. So I think, considering if you have to have a commercial contract, I'd really make sure you've done that, because they will just backdate it and they can under Ofgem rules. With regards to your question on this, Amanda, there are ways that you can look at this. I have please, I know I'm a geek sometimes, but I have a calculator, and I know how much it costs me for every light bulb. I know it costs me 36 pence, or sorry, yeah, 36 pence to run a hairdryer for 45 minutes, depending on the wattage. So I actually can track our energy uses based on that. So just by changing one light bulb, how much it saves. So there's areas you can actually help yourself on this, but there's also something else as well. We are, as a industry, as Gareth said, how we've come together, there are actual solutions out there and possibilities for us, and I'll leave that one there. Tracy's asked a question from the Pamper Suite. Oh, I could do with some of that right now, Tracy. I could really do with some pampering. Sorry, Gareth, that was a bit too much information. Okay, hi, have you got a pricing calculator to use, please? I have got a pricing calculator, if I'm allowed to say that, Gareth, over on SOU, and it's being used widely at the moment. And it's really helping people. And I'll give you an example how it's helped people. So salon owner sits down, does our calculator, and basically finds out that she's profitable on 5 or 6 services, and then she's got one service because she lives in a grey pound area, and that grey pound service is costing her every time somebody sits in her chair. So it's actually absorbing the profit from the other services. So it's really important to not just go, well, actually, I'll just put a £5 on this, £2 on that, and they're doing this down the road and I'll undercut them. It's really important to understand the actual detail of your business. It sounds much more complicated, or I'm making it sound more complicated than it is. But let's just put it this way. If I asked everybody on this call now, what's your mobile phone bill, you'd all know. So, or anything like that. So yes, there is one available, Gareth, if I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, absolutely, Claire. And what I'd say is there are a lot of these business coaches. Some are very good. Some I call snake oil charmers. Who have come from businesses that they couldn't make work, and yet they're then selling a pricing calculator as one of their main points. And again, just please be really careful about if you use a business coach or a business service, be careful who you use. Get testimonials, speak to clients of theirs, ask to understand how profitable their business is. And just please be careful with that.
And also, Gareth, I think something as well, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I think we've got to get away from this. Right, okay, it's 3 times salary. It's not. It doesn't work like that. Targets and everything else, because you've got to base it on exactly what your business costs are on a forecast basis, not just on, history. So I think, as Gareth just said, please be aware of what advice you get. If you're getting advice, please make sure it's from, somebody who's qualified to give that advice. I'll put it that way, Gareth, if I can.
Yeah, exactly. And that, Tracy, is we, I think, Colette's, as I said, got a pricing calculator over on the SOU website. I would perhaps start there, but there are lots of business coaches. And you probably want one that you can sit down with. So perhaps location is important, because they might understand your area better.
We can do it virtually, so we do a lot of that, Gareth.
Or on Teams, whatever.
Yeah, we do. We do workshops. So we had one the other day with about 20 odd salon owners, and we literally went through it with them, and all of them filled in their calculators. It was great, and they all came out of it knowing where they stood. So they actually felt. Do you know what was surprising, Gareth? A lot of them were like, I didn't know that actually that was okay. Or
I can charge this much for something.
Exactly, yes.
So Tracy, I mean, if it would help, if you've got a couple on a short list, do reach out to Colette or I, and we can give you our unvarnished view as to whether we think our experience, or we've got any knowledge of them, pro or con. One of the really important things we're going to do immediately now after this budget is that we're going to reach out again to all of the trade organisations and also the businesses that work in our sector. And we've already started that in the last 12 months, but we're going to have another bigger go to bring every manufacturer, every media outlet, every trade organisation around one table and really try to put commercial sensitivity to one side and lobby as one voice for our sector, because it is only by doing that that we're able to start to get some moves, and to start to see changes. And we will keep you up to date on that.
And we may actually ask for your involvement on that as well, Gareth. I think that's key to say. I think we may ask for some people's involvement on that. And that, just coming back to the survey, if I can, Gareth, we've already been asked by Treasury today for feedback, because it has to go through various think tanks, doesn't it, Gareth? And it has to go through various areas. I think it's really important just to say to people, I know you get survey fatigue, but this survey that's been done has been done with everybody. Okay, so everybody's there. So it will be going out at 12 o'clock tomorrow. It doesn't take long. Please complete it, because this is the difference between us getting an impact into government or not. And I think it's really important to just say, as Gareth just said, everybody's invited to what we'll be doing with regards to the trade organisations and businesses to meet. So there again, then we'll be using the data that you put in that survey to actually present and to look, so that we can find solutions, because we do need solutions. We've covered a lot of information this evening, but equally, everybody's in a different area. We all trade in different ways, but collectively, I do believe we have a much, much better and stronger, position into government if we actually work as one voice, like you just said, Gareth.
100%. We've got a meeting beginning of Hairdressing Council got a meeting beginning of December where we're meeting the small business minister, and we're absolutely going to be taking that survey data with us. We're absolutely going to be talking about these are the impact of the budget measures and what wasn't included, and these are some of the things that we absolutely need to do as a as an organisation. We're going to keep fighting for a mandatory register. All the surveys we do have said a 90+%, 94% in the last one of for hair professionals want a mandated register. We're going to keep going with this.
Yeah.
And we said it before, we'll say it again, it's not about one part of the industry versus another. It's not about self-employed versus employed. No. It's actually about making sure there's a professional, vibrant hairdressing industry that is there to support everybody into the future.
And I think the beautiful Sheila's got a hand up, Gareth. Mom?
Oh. Hang on, let me see if I can. I don't know. I can unmute you. I don't think.
No, if you just get rid of the slide, Sheila should be able to unmute herself, Gareth.
Hang on. Stop share. I should know how to do this. You'd think I'd.
Oh, it's multitasking, isn't it, Gareth? Come on. Hello, Sheila.
There you go. So you should better unmute yourself now, Sheila. Oh no. Hang on.
Yes, I do.
Good
evening.
Good evening, Sheila. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Lovely to see you here.
Just add to you. I just wanted to thank you both for all the information that you've given out to everybody to help us all understand. And I just wanted to, Gareth, you said just before, I wanted to say, it is, this is the time for the industry to get together. Every one of us are hairdressers or beauty therapists or barbers. We are one body of people. We all got to work together to save our industry. We will find solutions. We will see changes, and they will be for the better as we all work together and go forward. And thank you both for a very, very good, informative evening.
Oh, I love you, Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila. That is.
Thank you.
That's lovely. So I was just going to finish off our. Hopefully, I can do this. There we go. So it's not the end. We are going to keep working to find ways to get those to support the areas that are greatest hit, whether that's apprentices, whether that's advice, whatever it might be. We're absolutely going to keep going on this. If you want to get more involved, please let me know. Here's my email address and our telephone number. We are looking to set up an advisory board of hairdressers, of members of the Hairdressing Council, and we're looking to set up this advisory board, policy board, telling us the issues that are really impacting you guys, however you work, wherever you work, so that we can feed that into our decisions about the lobbying we're doing and everything we're doing. So please reach out to me if you'd like to be involved in that. I don't want necessarily high profile, they're very welcome high profile people, but I actually want as real people working, doing this every day, who've got a view as to how things can be changed and improved. So please reach out and bend my ear.
Oh, please do. Reach out and bend his ear. But I think that's really important, Guy, if you just said that. And I think it's incredibly, obviously going forward, we've still got a lot of work to do. But one thing is clear. Although I will say again, Gareth, mandating the register would actually solve a lot of the problems, because we could protect our professionals so much easier. We wouldn't have to go into bun fights every 5 minutes. We'd be like the GMA or the GDC or anything else, and it'd be like, right, we'll talk to the regulators first. We won't talk to 15 people. And I think I just wanted to reiterate that, Gareth, because I come from regulated industries, and I can't begin to tell you how much protection, and this is about protection, not red tape. Mandatory, it sounds like mandatory registration, but that is about protecting professionals, because we don't often talk about the kind of bad actors that are in our industry, Gareth, and I think it's important to say that.
Thank you, Colette. And so just to finish off, if there are no more questions, I'm going to pop the recording for this up on the Hair Council website after I have my supper tonight, so or maybe even tomorrow morning once it's all done. So if you want to share this with anybody else, please do. If anything else pops into your mind and you're reading the paper or looking at some rubbish on social media overnight, drop us an email or a message, and we will we'll do our best to answer. But,
and please, and just saying, Gareth, if anybody is worrying this evening, I'll probably be up till the early hours reading legislation documents, so drop me a DM, it's fine.
It's normal. So, that's a normal evening in the Osborne household.
It really is, isn't it? No, but genuinely, if anybody's concerned, please reach out. If you're a professional or industry, we're here to help. We're here to actually help you, and that's what we live and breathe for.
Yeah, brilliant. Great. Thank you guys very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening and speak soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.